Hello and welcome to Rick's RC Flying Channel. This is the first episode of a build series of the Sweet and Low kit. Now it's featured in one of my other videos. It's a red and white airplane. So let's get started. In this build series, it'll be divided into chapters to accommodate builders of different levels. However, to get things started, you need to get the plans onto your work surface. Of course, depending on the size of your table, you can either cut the plans to accommodate it, or you can fold them up. Once you've done that, make sure you get it as flat as you possibly can. Secure it to your table either by taping it down, or in my particular case, I happen to have a metal frame around my work surface, so I'm able to use magnets. Now, kits, of course, come in different levels of completion. There are short kits, full kits, and then there are full kits that come with a lot of extra accessories. This particular kit is a short kit. What you see here is basically all the major components to build the airplane have been pre-cut, whether it's plywood or balsa wood. One thing that laser cut kits provide is great accuracy in how everything is cut. And it's a pleasure to build an airplane with laser cut parts. So the builder would have to then provide the stick material and the sheeting to complete the aircraft build. Then there are full kits that give you all the wood that you need to complete the build. And then there are full kits that give you accessories such as cowlings, canopies, landing gear components, and so forth. Now, typically kits come with instructions, and this particular one has step-by-step instructions for the various build areas of the project, and it also comes with a material list to help guide you on the wood that you need to complete the build. So we're going to clear this table off and start the build process. So I've decided that, we're going to start with the fuselage. You can choose to build the wings first, or if you wanted to build the rudder or vertical stab, it's up to you. Referencing the instructions, we go to the fuselage section and it says step 1, 2, 3, and so on. And you simply check off the boxes as you progress. Now, nice thing about kits, more times than not, they give you a lot of extra information. These particular plans show illustrations. So instead of just looking at the plans, and it can be a little bit intimidating, particularly if you're coming from an ARF world where you might only have few steps to assemble the airplane, 5, 6, 8 steps. Whereas when you're building a balsa airplane, you could have 50, 60, or 100 steps. But always remember, at the end of the day, you're just doing everything one step at a time. And with the illustrations helps you visualize what the plans are trying to tell you. And it's very helpful. And most importantly, make sure you follow the instructions in the correct order. That way you don't get ahead of yourself and accidentally skip some steps, which might box you in, and you might not be able then to do a certain procedure because you've already got too far ahead. So it's a bit like a puzzle. You take the pieces, and in step 1, they say take FS 1, 2, 3, and so forth. The identification of the parts are engraved in the wood, a small font, and you can identify the pieces. And then you lay it on top of the plans, and you line up the components. So you follow the shapes, and you'll soon see how it actually lines up and fits. For example, I look at this piece here, this area, and I realize, well, this is the part that would most likely fit there. And you move it around so it lines up properly with what you're seeing on the plans. And it takes a little practice to kind of learn to read what the various pictorial lines are actually telling you. So we know that it's going to be covered with wood. So that's the top sheeting area here. So we have this piece lined up and it's all good. And now we're going to pin it down because we don't want anything to move. And when you pin at an angle, you pin straight up and down, the wood could float up. And make sure everything is snugly fits. and use enough pins just to make sure that it is secure and all the seams butt up properly. There we go. Now, even though everything is laser cut and it's done cut exactly to the templates, these are big plans, and sometimes the plans might have a slight variation, depends on who drew the plans and so forth. So when you are fitting parts, just always double check. You may have to take a sanding block the odd time, and you might have to make a small adjustment uh, just to get that fit that you're ultimately looking for. So we've got everything lined up there, looks nice. And here, and again, we just pin that all down. Now, in terms of glue, you can use alphatic glue. In other words, like carpenter's glue. And there are many different types out there, and they're all good. Now, they're very strong. And a nice thing about alphatic glue, you can sand it. So anything that squeezes out of the joints, particularly underneath, can be sanded away. I wouldn't use epoxy because if you get epoxy underneath it, to sand that off is going to be very difficult. And remember that one side is going to be the finished side. So the less sanding you have to do, the better. And epoxy is rather difficult to sand. Now, my preference in a case like this is to use CA glue because it bonds instantly, saves me a lot of time. Using alphatic glue, you're going to have to wait a few hours, or ideally even overnight would be really good. But using CA glue really speeds this process up. And even though we have seams and joints, I mean, at the end of the day, we're actually going to cover it with a doubler. So we got nice high-grade plywood doublers here, and that'll literally cover everything up and adds tremendous strength to the airplane. And they get put on the inside. Okay, so now we're just simply going to glue everything up. So what I need to mention is if you're using alphatic glue, in other words, as I mentioned, carpenter's glue, you need to apply the glue before you actually position the part. So in other words, that way you take the part, put some glue on it, cover the entire surface, and then place it down. You'll have plenty of time to do that and pin it in position. Whereas in the case of using CA glue, you can first pin everything down, get everything the way you want, and then apply the CA glue. So that's something to keep in mind. So this is the second piece. Here's the first side piece, has been completed. As you can see, it's a big airplane. The tail still has to be added on, and then there's the engine up front. So one side is completed. This is the second side. I just finished gluing it. And what's rather interesting, the sides fit exactly on the plans. However, the pieces were cut off a template that came with the plans and laser cut accordingly. And what's interesting is it's about 3/16 of an inch longer on this top piece here. Now, these plans were drawn up about 40 years ago, and today's CAD systems and so forth, I noticed the drawings are more precise, although these are very good drawings and, for all intents and purposes, very accurate. But be prepared from time to time that you will have to make small adjustments. Even these angle cuts, which again came off the template, needed a bit of adjusting to accommodate the exact lines of the plans. So it's handy to have a T sanding block, and the odd time you're going to have to do some shaping in that, but always follow the plans exactly, and whatever adjustments you have to make. So we're going to just remove these pins. CA glue dries extremely fast, like within seconds. And by the way, when you're pinning, obviously you pin around where you're going to be gluing, but also push down. If you ever feel like it's slightly raised, pin that section down too. As you can see, it doesn't stick to the wax paper. And here we go. We have another side piece. So we got two sides to the fuselage. There we go. All right, so now we'll move on to the next steps in the instructions. So what I've completed was gluing on the plywood doublers onto the fuselage sides. I also glued 2/4-inch plywood firewalls together. Everything has been glued with 30-minute epoxy. Once that's all cured, the next step will be to install the firewall and various bulkheads, and then eventually putting the fuselage sides together. I haven't decided yet on the engine I'm going to put in, although the airplane is designed around a 35cc gas engine. The other Sweet and Low has a Moki 1.8 glow engine in it, which happens to be 30cc, flies very nice with that. There's no doubt there'll be modelers possibly considering even slightly bigger engines. So I'm going to let this all cure overnight before proceeding on with the next steps. If you like the video, please select like and subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, I welcome them. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.